Saturday, everyone! What is going on? Cubs fan Han here for another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video. And my friends, Zetas are one of the most valuable resources in this game. And at this point, a lot of us have a ton of Zetas, especially as endgame players. So what are some of the underrated Zeta abilities in this game? I personally have been saving up a lot of Zetas lately, trying to figure out, what am I going to do with them? And I've kind of been going through thinking, all right, there's a lot of characters here that I just haven't been able to Zeta yet. Where can I get some solid value in Grand Arena, especially because we all know, look, your arena team, you're going to have all the Zetas there pretty much for the most part. And so I'm going to dig deep into the roster and give you guys 10 ideas of some Zetas to help you boost your Grand Arena potential, because these are the most underrated Zetas in the entire game. So let's check them out. All right, starting with number one. And these are in no particular order, ladies and gentlemen, at all. Starting with number one, we have got Farmboy Luke. Yes, Farmboy Luke. This is 0.05% of all Zeta abilities. That is pretty mad. Now look at what Farmboy Luke does. This is called Draw a Bead. At the start of each of his turns, Luke gains 10% critical damage that is stacking until the end of the encounter. That's his unique ability. All right, so 10% critical damage stacking until the end of the encounter every single time Luke takes a turn. That could be up to 100% critical damage. You start him at 222% with mods, and his critical damage could easily go over 300%. And Luke, if you get him actually maxed out, now Luke is a luxury character. You're not going to be using him in, this is a back wall, deep depths of your roster offensive character that you're probably not going to be using on the front wall almost ever. But again, we're talking underrated. Only 0.05% of people have this guy. And that much critical damage stacking actually has a ton of value. Luke can really light people up with that Zeta ability. What's more is if you apply that to raids, you can have a lot of damage going out in raids towards the end of those encounters. So don't sleep on Luke. This is a very luxury Zeta. Like, there's a lot of Zetas that are going to come before this on the priority list, but dang, if you can have this, you will be able to find use for it. Absolutely. All right, let's look at the next one. We have got number 9. What's before 10? Vex Mar returned to the light. Now, a big reason why Vex Mar is underrated and why only 0.18% of people have her. These stats, by the way, are according to SWGoH.gg. And so your results may vary. It's it's just the people registered on .gg, which is a sample size of the more hardcore committed player base, likely. But that's the stat we've got. Probably the biggest reason why this one is underrated is because Vex Mar is just not a character that many people are finding use for, because she doesn't have a very good squad at this time. I think that's the biggest thing I want CG to address with Vex Mar is give us something to do with Vex Mar. There's like nowhere to use her right now super effectively. You can theory craft niche uses though, however, and she will be very, very valuable against, say, back wall, Empire, Sith teams kind of thing. So again, not a front wall kind of character, but in Grand Arena back wall against Maul teams, that kind of thing, you could get some super good high banner use out of Vex Mar, because, if you look at her Zeta here, while she has no debuffs, she has a 6% chance to assist when another ally attacks Sith enemies once per turn. And so 60% is pretty high. And when you're going against Vex Mar, when you're going with Vex Mar against Sith, she just slings them. Just sling. Every time you're attacking Sith, you got that 60% chance. You see that hit a lot of the time. This Zeta ability is amazing. I love Vex Mar as a character. Not to mention, Vex Mar can revive. She's actually a really good character. Just doesn't yet fit like a glove into any squads. But there are unique places that you can find use for her. And so this Zeta, to me, is absolutely underrated. All right, let's get to the next one. We have got number 8, Colonel Stark, Imperial Intelligence. Would you believe that Colonel Stark only has 0.23% of Zeta ability, 0.23% of the Zetas? That's a lot lower than I thought it would be. And troopers are are great. And I I know I'm going to get grief for this because my troopers are not a team that I farmed out as much as I should. I really wish I could. But look at what Colonel Stark can do. Let's go over to his Zeta ability. At the end of his turn, Stark recovers 3% protection and removes 1% turn meter from all enemies for each active Empire ally, doubled for Imperial Trooper allies. So you're almost always going to be running Colonel Stark with troopers, right? And so that's 10% turn meter. 10% turn meter removed from every enemy at the end of every turn that Stark takes, not to mention the protection recovery. That's dope. That's super dope. And when you use, I mean, if you have a really polished troopers team, which again, I'm going to get crap because I know, you guys want me to have troopers. I don't have my troopers. I've been trying to find time to farm these guys, but I can't quite get there. There's other priorities and I need the money, you know, I'm not spending money on my main account. But anyway, if you have a really solid troopers team, I mean, guys, shoot, you can take out some solid Night Sister teams. You can take out a lot of teams in this game, and this Zeta ability is going to make that a lot more possible to happen. Part of what makes troopers so good is that they get out ahead. They're able to, you know, get that kill. They get those buffs, and Stark's going to help them stay ahead with that turn meter strip every time he gets a turn. And Stark, if you mod him right, he's going to go first because he's fast. And so you get that turn meter strip right out the gate. So anyway, Colonel Stark, I think he absolutely deserves to be on the underrated list. And look, only 0.23% of Zetas. Crazy. All right, let's go to the next one. We have got Old Ben, Devoted Protector. You got to love this Zeta. Now, there are 3 characters I can think of in game that have a Zeta that functions like this, where when you clear the taunt, it comes right back. Old Ben, out of those, is the least utilized at 0.23%. Let's look at what we've got here for Old Ben. The exact text here is... All right, let's go over here. There we go. When this taunt expired, Old Ben gains taunt for 1 turn. Okay, that's it. It's that simple. Look, if you don't have a way to work around that, and what makes Old Ben's taunt so valuable is even if you're able to successfully get through him, he's going to buff the team like mad. And so that is just so usable. If you can get that taunt over to Old Ben, and he's going to start with the taunt, I mean, there's just so many places to use it. Only 0.23% of Zetas on this one. I can't speak highly enough of how much that can derail a battle. I really like this Zeta, especially in like a Bastila team, because it just, you know, it's really great on defense. It's a great defensive Zeta. So don't sleep on Old Ben's Zeta, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's go to number 6 on the list. Again, not an ordered list. We're just going, as they are. Kandra Sword. I like a challenge, 0.26% of Zeta abilities. Kandra Sword. So I would say this Zeta definitely does not make this list pre-Gear 13 and pre-Relics. With the addition of Relics, this Zeta has potential to be one of the most devastating Zetas in the game from a damage-only perspective. I mean, if you have not seen footage of what Kandra Sword is capable of doing when he's got the Zeta, or when he's got the high relics, you need to check that out. All right, let's look at Kandra Sword here. We've got Kandra Sword gains critical damage up for 2 turns when an enemy gains taunt, becomes death marked, or becomes death marked or marked. All right, and so who's going to be taunting against this team? Like, so many teams are gonna have that taunt. So many teams are gonna, you know, utilize either death mark or mark. There's just so many teams that you're gonna take against these Old Republic teams that are gonna do at least taunt. And so when you give him the critical damage up constantly on top of what he already has, it's crazy, all right? So Kandra Sword, I think, and only 0.26% of people have this. So to me, if you have taken your Kandra Sword to Gear 12 or Gear 13 especially, and got those high relics on them, this Zeta is a must. It's going to just really take it to the next level here. All right, let's go ahead and check out the next one on the list. We have got number 5. My girl, Sabine Wren. Now, there's some good debate here on how useful a Phoenix Squad is. I personally find Phoenix Squad still very usable, especially if you are in the beginning game. If you have a really decked out Phoenix Squad, it can still catch people off guard, especially if you have a Zeta like Demolish. Demolish it demolishes you. You got the stagger, you've got so much. Look at this. So Sabine Wren, Phoenix allies gain critical chance up and offense up for 2 turns. And this is what the Zeta adds. Look at all this text. Reduce Sabine's cooldowns by 2 on a critical hit. So she's gonna, reset her cooldown so you can do Demolish again. Stagger all enemies for 2 turns. And for each active Phoenix ally, deal 15% more damage and expose a random enemy. It's all over the place, all right? You've got the critical chance up and offense up. You've got cooldown reduction. You've got stagger for AoE stagger. And this can't be countered. You've got 15% more damage for each Phoenix ally and expose a random enemy. That's 6 effects that are dope. If you've got a good Phoenix team, Demolish is one of the most vital Zetas that just takes that team and makes it scary. Even though the team itself is probably old news at this point, and I think there's a lot of counters to it, a lot of people also aren't running it with the Zeta Sabine. And that's a great way to catch people off guard in Grand Arena on your back wall defense when they're dipping into the depths of their roster. So don't sleep on Sabine Wren here. All right, let's go to the next one. We have got Vandor Chewbacca. I could not believe that only 0.18% of Zetas were Vandor Chewie. This is one of the better defensive teams in the game, especially if you pair it with like Nest, or you got Kira Lead, Vandor Chewbacca defense. It's really great what he's able to do. Let's check this out. So Vandor Chewbacca, when another light side scoundrel ally is defeated, revive that ally at 60% health. If Chewbacca is prepared, then Chewbacca is no longer prepared. That is very easy to trigger, and it makes things very tricky. If you've got the right team in there, and you've got the right taunt balance, like a lot of times people will run it with like Kira, Vandor Chewbacca, L3, and maybe Zalbar Mission or something along those lines. I think there's better places for Zalbar Mission right now, but if you can just keep people away from Vandor Chewbacca, you can get in a trap fast if you don't have the right team. This is a solid defensive team. It's not as good as it used to be. It used to be one of the best defensive teams in Grand Arena. I'd say it's back wall now. And a lot of these are back wall, by the way, because it's an underrated list, not a, cream of the crop list. But this is a great way to catch people off guard. I've got this Zeta, and I do not regret it. I just wish I had my Vandor at gear 12. But, priorities. Priorities. All right, let's check out the next one. Number 3 on the list is Jango Fett. Anything to get ahead. I have this Zeta as well, and I very much love it. Look at what the Zeta adds. Enemies have minus 20% potency for each debuff on all bounty hunter allies. Now, debuffing, I want to focus on that for a little bit because debuffs are a big part of how you go after a bounty hunter team. And so if you get a few out there out the gate, that's cute. It's going to get so much harder to land anything because your potency is just going to drain so fast. But then it goes on. Bounty hunters have plus 35% offense when they have bounty hunters resolve, and that's going to trigger with Jango's contract, which is one of the easiest contracts in the entire game to trigger for all the bounty hunters. And so this Zeta is fantastic, and a lot of people are running Bosk lead. I think you are missing out because this Zeta ability is amazing, but the ability itself before the Zeta adds 30% speed, plus 30 speed to, isn't it 30 speed? I'm pretty sure it's 30 speed to all bounty hunters. Let's look at it, the ability, just to be sure. I want to make sure I don't misspeak here. Yeah, plus 30 speed. That's just, it's crazy. Adding that 30 speed, especially if you already got a fast Bosk, get a fast high tenacity Bosk out there, get him to taunt right away, and if you put Jango as a leader, he'll be more likely to taunt first, and then it gets really tough, and even if you land a few debuffs, you're going to have that potency just drained from your team. Fantastic Zeta leadership. One of the best Zetas on this list, frankly. All right, let's get to the next one. We have got number 2, Nute Gunray. This is my favorite new Zeta. Nute is an amazing defensive character that a lot of people are taking advantage of, but if you're not yet, get with it. Ladies and gentlemen, you need a Nute Zeta, my friends. This guy is off the chain with his Zeta. Check this out. All right, Nute Zeta adds, whenever a Separatist ally inflicts a debuff, they also deal 5% max health damage to that enemy, which can't be evaded. Separatists have so many debuffs. And so when you've got this Zeta ability, and this is a unique, you don't even have to have him in the leadership spot. They will deal 5% max health damage. Max health damage is so dope, guys. It's just because it's always valuable. It's even as health scales up, it's 5%. It is what it is. And for every time a Separatist ally inflicts a debuff, they're going to deal that 5% max health damage. And it can't be evaded. You got to have it. You got to have it. It's one of the best defense. This is a potentially front wall defensive team. I'm putting mine on the back wall because I still don't have him, the team fully geared, although I do have my Nute at gear 12 now, which is probably my favorite new gear 12 character that I've added. All right, let's get to the last Zeta on this list. We have got Shakti Heightened Reflexes. I am surprised that Shakti Zeta here is only 0.52% of the Zetas because of how necessary Shakti is in this game right now. Now, it could be that just a lot of players haven't been able to get to her yet, and you will, because this is definitely front wall defense. But look at this. Add whenever Shakti or Clone Trooper ally takes damage from an attack, they gain retribution for 2 turns until the end of that turn. That retribution, you can't clear that. Like, what makes this so valuable is when retribution in and of itself is great for the clones because they've got so much synergy, they've got so much damage. And if you add the fact that you just can't dispel it, you know, a lot of buffs like this, you know, retribution, taunt, etc., you just dispel them. There's so many ways to dispel, but when it triggers this often, you know, it's like Scion and the pain triggering the taunt. You can't dispel it. You just can't dispel that. The only way is to add buff immunity somehow, but Rex is going to have that tenacity up so fast, and so it's going to be very hard to do that. Shakti Zeta is amazing, and it's a unique. It's not even her leadership. You don't have to have her in the leadership spot to take advantage of that. I think it's one of the best Zetas in the game, frankly, just because of how much retribution you get. And it's 2 turns, basically all that. It just basically gives everybody retribution, period, throughout the entire encounter, because you have to damage them. You can't play the game if you don't damage them. So anyway, there you go. There is a full look at the best underrated Zetas in the game. What Zetas would you guys add to this list? I would love to hear it down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this video. I also want to thank you guys. By the time this video goes live, we're probably going to be hitting 40,000 subscribers. I'm going to hit that probably either tonight or tomorrow morning, maybe by the time this video is live. And I have to thank you guys. Thank you so much for coming out, subscribing to this channel, supporting this. My goal again this year is to hit 50,000 subscribers, and we are cruising on the way to hit that. I'm just so humbled. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. It means so much to me to have you guys here, and I'm just having the time of my life here covering this game at a much more committed level. So, all right, everyone, thanks again for joining me for this video, and as always, my brothers, don't forget.
Sorry about the mess.